Hello, and welcome. I recently had a little tiny trip to Manchester. My girlfriend's brother lives up there currently, and we thought we'd go up and have a look at all the different cool shops that you can go in the centre in the city centre of Manchester. And I went in some really cool shops, and I picked up a couple of cool things. Yeah. I'll start out with the records from Manchester, and then I've also got a few other cool bits and pieces to show, some VHS tapes. So we went to quite a cool place called Affleck's, which used to be called Affleck's Palace, and it's like a very famous indoor market which is spread out over 4 floors on this glorious old Victorian department store, long defunct, and there's been Affleck's for a long time. But there's a record shop at the top of there, and I looked around, but I just didn't really see much that really tickled me fancy. I went across the road to a place called Vinyl Exchange, which reminded me a lot of Sister A and Soho. You know, like a lot of new stuff, maybe a few rarities here and there, but it had a nice feel about it. It had a nice vibe. And I found a couple of records which are actually quite exceptionally expensive records, to be honest. I wouldn't normally be spending this kind of cash on records, but I couldn't find anything else, and I kind of justified it to myself because I was on holiday, I suppose. So the first record is very kind of fitting to the place that I bought it, and it is Closer by Joy Division, or Closer, and you can interpret that either way, really. But yeah, what better place in the world to pick up this record but then in Manchester? You know, it just was very fitting. Somehow never owned the album before, but this is the CBS pressing of the album, which is not as rare as many other pressings of this album. You know, there are different ones from when it came out. This is from when it came out, but it's just not as valuable, I suppose, which is how I could basically afford it, really. But it is in really nice condition. There's quite a bit of sort of discoloration and little blotches and things to the sleeve and the inner sleeve, but I'm not a complete perfectionist, so I don't mind. So there is like a bit of a funny stain there, but it doesn't really bother me, to be honest, as long as it all holds together and the music sounds good. So this is a really nice, shiny, glossy vinyl, and I did give it a little listen in the store. They had a little listening station, which is quite an essential part of a record store, really. And this particular shop, like many shops, did hold their vinyl behind the counter. So you just saw the sleeve and then you went and asked for the record. So I went and got it off the guy. I had a little listen on the listening station. They had this nice old dusty Technics record player that I could listen to, and I had a listen, and it did have a little bit of crackle sort of in between the tracks, but it was nothing invasive, and it does sound very good. It's got a very, very fresh, high-end sound. And I passed it over to the bloke, and he kind of said, "Is that any good, son?" And I said, "Yes, it is good. I'm taking this home." Yeah, this album's got Atrocity Exhibition on it. Great song, great lyrics, as well as many other great tunes. So the record store was called Vinyl Exchange. I got a bag, really nice bag. Established 1988, 18 Oldham Street, Manchester. So make sure you go there if you're in the area. So we went in a bunch of other shops. We went into this really, really nice pub, which my girlfriend's brother used to work in, and this was just an incredible place. I took lots of photographs of it. It had some really old signs from HMV from God knows when, the 1950s or something. Apparently, yeah, they have to turn them off at night because otherwise they'd catch fire, literally. But this was just a beautiful boozer. I loved it. It was so spacious. It had all kinds of retro signs on the wall. It's just my kind of place, you know. And it was totally deserted when we went, and it was just wonderful. It was a beautiful experience. Always take the Olaf with you everywhere you go, even when you're in Manchester. So we went in there to sink a few pints, and normally this place apparently is just flooding, like with business. You know, there's people queuing up round the corner to get in. I don't think I want to go to Manchester on a weekend. You know, we went on a Tuesday, and yeah, it was just wonderful for that. You know, it was proper quiet. But yeah, we had a bit of a drink in the pub, and whilst I was in the shop the first time in Vinyl Exchange, I saw something which was very expensive, but has been on my list for so many years, and I thought, can I justify it? Can I justify it? And we had a long talk about it, and eventually I did kind of conclude, you know what? Let's get it. So we walked right back into the shop, round the corner, and I dropped a load of cash. Probably the most I've ever spent on a record, which might seem a bit silly, on the Tame Impala EP. I've wanted this record for as long as I've been collecting Tame Impala, which is for about 8 years now. It was released in 2008. It was released before Tame Impala had an album, when they had just signed to Modular. And the EP essentially comprises of a bunch of Kevin Parker's early recordings done on his 8-track. He had about 25 tracks, and they just literally picked the best 5 tracks that sat nicely together and sounded good. Yeah, created an EP out of it, but it's a really good EP. It's got a really retro sound, a really fuzzy, sounds like 60s, really 60s psych rock. And there's a great bonus track on here called Wonder. This is the 2013 Record Store Day edition, which was limited to 5,000. It's on red vinyl, and yeah, it's become very out of print and very sought after, especially since Tame Impala has just colossally blown up since 2013. So yeah, there's a lot of people wanting this. It's got a big want to have ratio on Discogs. The median value is about £70, so you know, that kind of gives you a hint as to you know, how desirable this is. But yeah, I'm really pleased I got it. It really does kind of complete my Tame Impala collection. So whilst we were in Manchester, we went into this fabulous shop. I think it was called Entertainment Exchange or something along those lines, something exchange. And essentially this is a junk shop, you know, a retro antique junk shop that kind of just sells anything and everything. They've been there for 30 odd years. It's a really nice shop. It's the kind of shop that I like to go into when I'm in places like Hastings. You know, just odds and ends. They basically just sell everything. They've got a vintage porn section. They've got comic books. They've got records, CDs, VHS tapes. Whilst I was in, I did find a couple of VHS tapes. For £3, I picked up The Witchfinder General. This is a movie with the great Vincent Price in it. I watched this the other night on VHS. Obviously, this is VHS. It's pretty good. It's pretty scary. It's quite a, I suppose, misogynistic film, but it is about the days of witch hunting. Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. I'm pretty sure this VHS tape is sourced from like 3 different copies of the film, because there's such tonal inconsistencies with like the coloring and things like that, and you can tell when it changes over. But the branding on this is awesome. I've been collecting VHS tapes quite a bit lately because I'm trying to like display them and things like that, because I always think the artwork on VHS is a bit better than on Blu-ray and stuff. Yeah, it's by this company called Redemption, which had a really cool ident at the beginning of the tape. And from that shop, I also got Creep Show 2. This is like a Stephen King thing. I think it's like a anthology of sorts, like lots of short stories, I believe. I've never seen the Creep Show films, but this is a really nice VHS version of it. The artwork is just sublime. Wearing that vintage 18 BBFC logo like a badge of honor. So yeah, I guess Stephen King wasn't involved with this one. It was all just George A. Romero, but George A. Romero is just legendary, you know, Dawn of the Dead and all of that stuff. Really, I mean, I've been watching VHS tapes on a VCR plugged into our very large television, and to be honest, it's not an ideal way to watch. I think really, if you're going to get into VHS, you've got to have one of those old box TVs, and I know several friends who really want to have that set up in their house, you know, like an old CRT television hooked up to a really high quality VHS machine. For the authentic experience, you know. So I would quite like to look out for one of those, maybe one that has a VCR even built into it. We'll have to look, we'll have to see what happens, but they're currently so expensive, it's ridiculous. So whilst we're on the subject of VHS, I salvaged a load the other day from going to the dump. One of my local charity shops, I went out the back to talk to the staff, as I often do, and, you know, see if there's any cool new arrivals, any CDs or anything. And I noticed in the pile of things that they were taking to the tip, there was a load of VHS tapes. And I just said, well, you know, if you're not going to sell these, if you're just going to dump them, can I have them? And they were more than happy to hand them over to me. And I found some pretty good ones in there, which I really want to use on my display. So primarily what I'd like to collect on VHS is like old horror films. I think that just goes with the vibe, really. But I found Salem's Lot, which also has Return to Salem's Lot on it, double VHS combo, 102 minutes. I'm surprised it's only 102 minutes, because I'm pretty sure even the first Salem's Lot is very long. A few other random ones, the young ones, the best of the young ones, so some of the best episodes. It's got the episode Bambi, which I love. Watership Down, this is a very bleak movie. This is like a really dark movie, like disguised as a kids film. I got Michael Jackson, the making of Thriller, with the Thriller video on it. I remember having this tape way back in the day when I was a kid, when I used to collect VHS tapes out at charity shops. But this one's in immaculate condition. The tape itself looks just like unplayed. It's beautiful condition. Picked up Pulp Fiction. Yeah, I love the artwork on that. Really nice design all round. Classic film, of course. Interview with the Vampire with Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt, of course. And also the live show for Bottom, which surprisingly is a 18 rating. I don't remember the series being an 18, so I'll be interested to see what this is all about. So a few more bits to go through. I won't sort of chat about them for ages because just got limited time, and I can of course cover them in the future. But I got The Visitors by ABBA, which is a wonderful album. This is a bunch of charity shop finds. I found a load in a charity shop. Some of them kept for myself and some of them traded, and then I'll show the records which I got from trading the other ones. But yeah, this is The Visitors, their final album. Well, final album if you don't include the shit new one. And it's a bloody wonderful album. So much great pop on here, immaculately produced. Some of this was recorded digitally, strangely, which they had a few issues with, I think. Got some Roy Orbison, Best of Roy Orbison, really good 50p find from a local rummage sale. It's got a really cool, like, psychedelic gatefold on it. I think Roy Orbison, I've always loved his voice, but I've always felt like he was like the hero to a lot of my heroes, if you know what I mean. Like being around in the 50s and 60s, like a lot of people like Jeff Lynne and people like that would have been a big fan. I got Greatest Hits Volume 1 and 2 by Billy Joel. This has been written on Christmas 1985. Oh God, what does that even say? From Gerald Barnett, flatmate. Okay, fair enough. Don't have a lot of Billy Joel. Only got one album from him, so good to pick up the best of. Brothers in Arms by Dire Straits. I had this on CD, traded the CD after I found this, and it's a beautiful copy. Original from 1985. Really good condition, and classic album, of course. This next one I really enjoyed because it's just a wonderful compilation. The Cream of Eric Clapton. Really, every single song on here is so good, just endless good songs, really. And this is on the Polydor label. A funny coincidence is that I found it in another charity shop the same week on cassette. So I've been listening to both the cassette and vinyl versions. This cassette is a chrome tape on Polydor, so really good sound quality. But yeah, that's a wonderful thing to find in a charity shop. I mean, just endless great songs on there. Like I say, I'll talk about all of these in a lot more detail sort of in the future, in recent spins videos and so on. Got the best of Isaac Hayes, who of course played Chef in South Park, but one of the finest artists of the 70s, Walk On By, theme from Shaft, wonderful record. And I do like the Stax Records logo that you get in the corner there. When I first found this next one, I thought it was a very, very common generic record because it is Phil Collins, No Jacket Required. Probably the most 1985 album you could imagine, really. Of course, Susudio and, songs like that, which were Patrick Bateman was a big fan of. And I don't think I'll ever be able to hear that song without associating it with that scene. If you've seen the film, you know what I mean. But when you pull this out, it reveals that it is actually a white label one. And I think it's a test pressing, an original test pressing for this album, which if you're a Phil Collins collector, is quite a sought after collector's item. So yeah, that's worth a bit of money. Not that most people would ever pay money for it, but yeah, that can be worth some money. The original white label test pressing just inside of a normal sleeve, strangely. But yeah, I mean, Susudio really was just such a sort of poor man's Prince 1999. So next up, I'm going to show a few records which I purchased from Olaf's record store with store credit that I got from trading various charity shop records and CDs. So I often do try to go around charity shops and also boot fairs and things like that, and just try to sort of salvage together lots and lots of cheap but desirable finds that I can take down to Olaf's, take down to Downtown Retro as well, and just get a nice credit, really, so that I can pick up a few records which I really want, like proper good records. And I did pick up with one of the credits, Boys Don't Cry by The Cure, who I am absolutely obsessed with at the moment. And this is a phenomenal record. I think this is up there with their best. But I kind of already own this album because also from Olaf's record store, I think you'll remember, I recently picked up Three Imaginary Boys. And these two albums are kind of the same album. This has turned out to become one of the more rare records in my collection. It's got quite a big median value on it, especially in the condition that it's in. This is like a mint copy. But essentially, this album, Boys Don't Cry, is an improved version of this album. You know, it replaces some of the songs with better songs. It's got the song Boys Don't Cry. It's got Killing an Arab. You know, it changes the track list slightly. This was basically just the American version of this album. But I am more than happy to have both as a Cure fanatic. And both are mint condition. So I'm really, really thankful to own both of these records. It's a really special thing to have. You know, even though this one's better, I do still quite like the track listing on this one, and of course I really like the classic artwork. Also picked up a bit of Captain Beefheart, a bit obsessed with Captain Beefheart at the moment, to be honest. Picked up this album, Unconditionally Guaranteed. Got this all with store credit. I think it was £16, but in terms of what I traded to get the money to get it, like it would have been like, I don't know, £4 or something that I would have paid. This is often regarded as the guy's worst album, but I like it. I think it's good. This album and the album that came after, Balloon Jeans and Moonbeams, was like seen as his commercial period where he was just trying to kind of make some money and do something a bit more accessible. A lot of Beefheart fans despise this album and the other album that I mentioned, but I really like them. I think they're really good, like just really slick, clean, simple, you know, rock from the 70s, you know, blues rock, brilliantly recorded, brilliantly played. You know, there are some filler tracks on here, but generally speaking, I like this a lot. And I've got Blue Jeans and Moonbeams on order. Been collecting a lot of Beefheart lately. You know, I think I'll do a video on him at some point. I'll give him his own video because, yeah, I really need to talk about him in more detail, really. And also a cheaper one, but a good one. I picked up Elvis Costello and the Attractions with the album Get Happy. Been collecting a lot of Elvis Costello as well at the moment. Probably do a video on him as well. But this is one of his classic albums from the 80s. It's got 20 tracks on it, which seems a bit unbelievable. It's sort of marketed as one of these sort of cheapy greatest hits albums. It's got a sticker on it saying 20 great hits and a bit of fake ringware on there. I think this is supposed to sort of be like a tacky bargain bin record, apart from the fact that it's an original album. But yeah, it's from like 1980. I'll get to Elvis Costello eventually and do a proper video. So a bunch of finds from my other local record store here. We've got a bunch of really great finds from the shop Rollin Records. I'm very lucky because my two favourite record stores, I'd say, are my two local ones, which is an enormous privilege. I'm very fussy about record shops. A lot of them have just got stuff that is not desirable to me, to be honest, or too expensive, but really lucky that my two favourites are the locals. So I picked up this very cheap Dire Straits Making Movies. Similar to Brothers in Arms, I bought this and then got rid of my CD copy. You know, nice to have it on vinyl, really. I picked up a late 80s pressing on Castle Communications on a record label called Essential Records. This is Iggy and the Stooges' Raw Power. I've been getting into the Stooges a lot lately. I did buy their debut album as well. When I first put this on, I thought it was like a really bad pressing, but it turns out it's just a really bad mix. This album is famously kind of badly mixed. Iggy Pop did try to remix it in the 90s, but wasn't quite that successful. But yeah, hugely influential record. I mean, this is like straight up punk rock from 1973, you know? I love the images on the back. Yeah, it's a bloody great record. It might not be the best sounding record. Ironically, David Bowie was brought in to do the mixing, and I'm not sure what drugs they were smoking, but they didn't do the greatest job of the mix. But then again, it was just done in a day. It was sort of rushed out there, really. But yeah, brilliant record. Great to have. Speaking of David Bowie, I also picked up a compilation, which I'm really happy with. I'm going to have to review this on its own, I think, at some point. This is Images by David Bowie. This is released on the Derham label from... it's a German record from 1973, but essentially this is a new and improved version of the debut David Bowie album with frankly better artwork. You have these kind of comic strip little pieces of artwork which represent all of the songs. You've got this glorious, beautiful gatefold on lovely thick card. This is immaculate condition. It's like somebody bought it and never used it. I was really happy with this pickup, but I like the early Bowie stuff. Tracks like Uncle Arthur and Love You Till Tuesday, etc. The Laughing Gnome. Yeah, I will cover this properly. And finally, a bargain bin record. This is a bargain bin record which I've wanted to find in the bargain bin for a long time. Because of the status of this artist and who he is and the level of fame that he is, you can easily pay like £12-15 for this record, but I knew that it was a bargain bin cheapy record. I was just waiting for one to turn up. And thankfully it did. It's McCartney 2. It's a record which I love a lot. I've gotten into it lately. Both my brothers are big fans of this album. And yeah, it's immaculate condition. It looks unplayed. There's a couple of scuffs and a couple of creases on the cover, but I'm not bothered about that. I love this album. This album represents so much of what I love from other artists, but it's Paul McCartney doing it. It's got the kind of wackiness, the kind of, it almost reminds me of like what Damon Albarn was doing on the first Gorillaz record, probably smoking too much dope and just making some wacky stuff. It's also got elements of like Roy Wood wackiness on tracks like Bogey Music. It's got beautiful ballads like Waterfalls and Summer's Day Song. It's got really experimental music. Some people even said that he like invented certain genres with this. It's almost like Tame Impala before Tame Impala. Paul McCartney sitting in his shed or whatever with recording equipment, just doing everything on his own. This is like Tame Impala 30 years before Tame Impala. It's got an excellent gatefold on it. Paul McCartney on there doing some funny faces, which I like a lot. Yeah, I mean, you could kind of interpret this record as crap, but I think it's just so interesting and unique. Temporary Secretary, for example, it's got that really weird arpeggio on it. So I probably will do a review of this at some point. Yeah, 1980, recorded in the summer of 1979. It's a fine, fine record. Paid £2 for it as well. Back of the net. So that was it for today. So I shall catch you very, very soon. Goodbye.